Hello, everyone, and welcome to Healthy Cooking with Shayda. I'm your host, and this is where I teach you how to make healthy plant-based meals that are salt, oil, and sugar-free. But today, we are not cooking in the kitchen, but we are going to have John Pierre on today and talk about brain health and everything. So before we get started, just a few things. Make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure that you comment in the YouTube channel, because I love getting the comments from you guys, and I will respond to your comments. And if you have any questions or anything today, please make sure to write those up. And in order to make it easier for Aaron, please make sure to put 3 question marks in front and 3 question marks in the back, because it comes through pretty quickly, and I want Aaron to be able to catch those so that we don't miss any of your questions. So today's talk is going to be really exciting. It's all about brain health. It's all about our cognitive functions and everything like that. And I can't wait for JP to get us going. So JP, welcome to Healthy Cooking with Shayda.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And thank you, most importantly of all, for doing these shows and getting this information out to everybody. Recipes, delicious recipes and nutritious ones are important. So thank you.
Thank you for saying that. So, well, I guess we should just get started on Brain Health 101.
Sure. For those who don't know me, my name is John Pierre, and I've been teaching nutrition and fitness for close to 30 years now. Actually, a little over 30. It's maybe 37. And been vegan for about 40 years. So about, 37 years teaching. And my background, believe it or not, is in geriatrics. So over 25 years ago, I created some of the first brain building programs in the United States using a plant-based diet and different like nutraceuticals, nutrients and herbs and vitamins and things and superfoods for the brain. And then when I would be teaching classes, I'd be at retirement homes, senior centers, adult daycare centers, and local venues I would do too. But most of my topics were on the brain or fall prevention. And what I did is I would come into retirement homes sometimes 3 times a week, and I would do classes not only just on how nutrition and lifestyle affects the brain, but we would do actually brain building exercises. So that was really interesting for me to see all those years and monitoring all these people and see how people improved. And then I started doing boot camps for seniors. So we did actually classes to enhance their what we call neuroplasticity, the way their brain kind of starts rewiring when we give them new and unusual tasks. I used agility ladders and lots of different balls and bubbles and things like that. And it was a lot of fun. And one of the things that really was concerning me back in the day, this was, 25 plus years ago, is I was seeing my clients coming in younger and younger with cognitive issues. They were having memory impairment, just attention deficit, hyperactivity issues, just general forgetfulness and things like that. And when I looked at their diet, I had everybody keep a food diary. I mean, it was pretty scary what I was seeing. I mean, it was most of their food was animal products and processed foods. There wasn't many fresh fruits or vegetables or whole grains or nuts and seeds or tubers, sweet potatoes and things like that. So, one of the things that we saw it back then in the literature, but we're seeing more and more now, is how important the diet is in terms of the brain. And you have to remember the brain is really just, it's flesh and blood. It's like any other part of our body, whether it's the heart or the kidneys, and it requires a constant supply of blood to function and oxygen and nutrients. And what's unusual about the brain is it's only about 3 pounds, but it uses about 25% of your body's oxygen and just about the same amount in terms of carbohydrate. So anything that impedes blood flow is going to really impede a cognitive functioning. And so anytime you're eating a standard American diet with processed foods and animal products, and you get atherosclerosis, you get occlusions of these arteries and they're closing up, you're impeding blood flow. Something as simple in the geriatric field as somebody being dehydrated, you're impeding blood flow. Somebody eating too much fat and you start getting blood sludging and clumping, the red blood cells sticking together and they can't deliver oxygen adequately, you're impeding blood flow. So these are all things that we have to take into account as people get older. Atherosclerosis is definitely very common in America. We're seeing children who have been killed in automobile accidents and their bodies autopsied. We're seeing little blockages or plaques already in the arteries at 3 years of age. And by the time they're teenagers, there's measurable issues in the artery. And so by the time they're adults, is there any wonder why they're having, cerebral vascular insufficiency from the carotid or vertebral arteries, not enough blood flow to the brain? And there's lots of issues that cause from this. And you've heard the term dementia. And what's kind of scary and what you guys should be concerned about is we have about 55 million people that have dementia worldwide. And by 2050, that number is set to triple. So that is pretty scary. And dementia is kind of an umbrella term. Alzheimer's is one type of dementia. There's Lewy body, there's vascular, there's frontotemporal, there's Huntington's. There's lots of different types of dementias, but nonetheless, lifestyle and diet are critical. Now, there's many things that can be attributed, like genetics for sure, but only about 3% of Alzheimer's is really genetic. Most of it is lifestyle. There's other, like Huntington can be genetics and things like that, but most of it is lifestyle. Head injuries are very common. Pugilist dementia, they used to call it, and that causes brain damage. Something obscure like sexually transmitted diseases, that is very common, and that causes an issue. Pesticides, lots of pesticides, and using chemicals on your skin or inhaling them is an issue. Obviously, smoking is an issue, drug use. And then little things like B12 deficiency. B12 deficiencies can cause permanent neurological damage. And the symptoms of B12 deficiency are very similar to dementia. So you need to understand that there's lots of things that can cause it. But nonetheless, the most important thing to remember is that we want to do everything we can to stack the deck in your favor. And lifestyle is where we can't change our genes. So lifestyle is where we have to start. Now, the brain has about 80 billion different neurons in there, and each neuron can have thousands of different connections. And when a neuron is stimulated, like if I say to you, Shayda, how do you spell your name? Can you spell your name for me?
Shayda.
Okay, can you spell it backwards?
Adyahs.
Yes, good. And so that pause is the brain going zzz, 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 and growing. So these neurons sprout these little dendrites, these little branch chain projections, and that's what allows the brain to communicate. And so there's thousands of connections per neuron, and it's pretty amazing for just a little 3-pound tissue that it's so complex. As a matter of fact, it's been said that there's more connections and neurons in the brain than there are stars in the galaxy, which is, that's pretty amazing. So the brain is very unique, but we don't really take good care of the brain. We take better care of our stamp collection or our car than we do our brain. So today I just want to go over some real simple things that you can do to start taking care of your brain and making sure you get enough nutrients and oxygen. If any questions pop up, Shayda, you can let me know, and then sure. I can answer them, during or after.
Sure. Erin is keeping track of questions coming in, so definitely.
Okay, good. So one of the things I want to say is we mentioned earlier how circulation is incredibly important for the brain. There's about 60,000 miles of blood vessels that we have to pump blood through. And remember, your heart is a pump, and one of its main jobs is obviously to pump blood throughout the body. And the stronger your heart is, the more stroke volume that we get, better blood flow. But if your heart is strong, but the arteries are weak or occluded or closed up, we're in trouble. So we have to make sure that we maintain as close as we can to a plant-based diet, eliminating animal products, eliminating and at least severely reducing processed foods, hydrogenated oils, and things like that can damage the artery, just like smoking can. These are things that cause big problems. And remember, all you need to do is just impede blood flow a tiny bit to the brain, and it can throw the whole brain off. It's kind of like, Shayda, if you have a computer and there's 8 wires connected to the computer and I just snip one of them, I only snipped one, there's 7 left, but I can guarantee you your computer is not going to be working. So every drop of morsel of food and liquid is critical in terms of your brain's health and vitality. So my first suggestion is make sure you do everything to follow a plant-based diet, remove animal products and processed foods. If you are already following a plant-based diet, say like you are, Shayda, that's fantastic. But one of the things that you're going to want to do is, from a dietary standpoint, make sure that you get your arteries to open up even more all the time. And we'll talk about exercise a little bit later, but one of the main things that you can do is eat foods that are high in nitrates that create nitric oxide in the body that is a vasodilator. It opens up the blood vessels. And things like beets, arugula lettuce, greens in general are going to be really great for the brain to open them up.
So quick question. So does that mean as you get older, you need to be eating a lot more of those foods?
That's a great question, because as you start getting into your 60s, your body may only produce about 15% of the nitric oxide that it once did. So you're correct. And that's very difficult for people as they get older. One, they don't have the same appetite. A lot of them have zinc deficiencies that can affect their appetite. They can't masticate or chew as well. And they also have poor hydrochloric acid or digestive issues. So one of the things, as you can see, I'm drinking right now is Beet Boost. And so these types of drinks that are made with, this one, Beet Boost, is made with I think it's about 4 beets and 40 tart cherries per serving. The reason why these are important is because as you get older, as you said, it's an issue creating nitric oxide. And so you can either juice lots of greens. You could use, like what I recommend to a lot of my clients are the different green powders. Health Force makes vitamin mineral green and greener grasses. This one's the vitamin mineral green. And these are great because it's an easy way for you to get greens in your diet if you're not going to get fresh. Now, I would love to see you eat beets. I'd love to see you eat arugula lettuce and green leafies as much as you can. One of the things that you want to do to give yourself a little bit more of an edge is when you're sipping your Beet Boost, or you're eating your beets, or you're eating your arugula, chew it to a cream consistency, the foods, and let them sit a little bit back on the dorsal or the rear portion of the tongue, because that's where there's a lot of bacteria, and that interacts and helps create this nitric oxide. So it's I mean, those are the healthy ways to do it. There's nothing wrong with drinking, the Beet Boost and things like that. And we don't sell them, but on johnpierre.com, if you go to JP's favorites, they're there. And the code for the Beet Boost is just JP16, and then you get a discount.
But you're not recommending to drink the Beet Boost. Are you saying if you drink the Beet Boost, it's okay? Or do we need to do the Beet Boost and the dark leafy green vegetables?
If you're fairly young and you're doing a lot of beets and greens, you don't necessarily need the Beet Boost. If you can afford it, then I would definitely get it. But if you're elderly, I would definitely be trying to stack the deck in your favor. So either, drink, blend up beets, blend up more greens and make green juices, or, just drink the Beet Boost. But as you get older, it's more difficult for your body to make that nitric oxide. And remember, nitric oxide is very similar to like Viagra or nitroglycerin. Its job is to open up the arteries. It's a signaling molecule. As a matter of fact, it won a Nobel Prize. 3 guys won the Nobel Prize in 1998, and for the research on the effects of it as a signaling molecule. I think it was for the heart. And I think it was in one of the science journals in maybe 92 that it won Molecule of the Year. So it's a very amazing molecule. It's actually a gas that gets produced from the arteries, and particularly in the perisinal cavities here. So when you do nasal breathing in and out through your nose, it really helps produce more nitric oxide. So, we could do you could do a whole, conference on nitric oxide, but I'm just trying to say, we want to keep the arteries open. We want to keep circulation going, and the greens, the arugula, the beets and things with nitric that help make nitric oxide are critical. Now,
Perfect.
the other thing that we want to do is make sure that we increase circulation with our heart. So we want to make sure we're getting that exercise. And remember, every time you're walking, you're biking, you're jogging, you're swimming, any of that stuff, you're stimulating the heart to pump more blood. And then more blood will go to the brain and nourish, bring oxygen, bring nutrients, and then take away byproducts, waste products. So that's really important, is that you're on some sort of exercise program. And it doesn't need to be, some CrossFit or high intensity Olympic training. It just needs to be consistent exercise, aerobics and some strength training. And then if you can, for your brain, it's important if you can do some exercises that stimulate coordination and balance. So getting on a rebounder, ping pong, table tennis, paddleball, tennis, things that have to do with hand-eye coordination are very stimulating for the brain. Does that make sense?
No, that makes total sense, because like I've started, like I started playing pickleball, and that was really nice, because that is a high, that is the hand and eye coordination. When I was little, when I was younger, I used to love playing ping pong. I think ping pong was like so much fun, but now I don't have anybody to play with, so.
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, you can get yourself ping pong paddles and a couple balls really inexpensive, and just find a wall that you can hit back and forth. Like if you have a counter, you just bounce it and hit it back and forth.
That's not a bad idea. That's actually a great idea.
Yeah. So in terms of the other thing that you need to do is you want to do your very best to keep hydrated. Because remember, your blood, when it's healthy, is about 92% water. And as you get this hypovolemia, you start losing water and get dehydrated, the blood becomes thicker. So instead of kind of looking like, a beet juice, it starts looking more like molasses. And so it moves very slow through the artery, and it doesn't carry the nutrients and the oxygen the way it should. And the people really most affected by dehydration, believe it or not, are the geriatric community. So they really have the deck stacked against them. They don't produce the nitric oxide as they once did. They don't eat the foods that produce nitric oxide, and then they're dehydrated, and they already have atherosclerosis, and they don't move much. So their heart is poor in terms of pumping, its stroke volume. So as you get older, you're really stacking the deck against you, and you need to do everything that you can to stack the deck for you. Now, a couple of foods that I'd recommend. Remember, the brain, although it's only 3 pounds and it's using, though, about 25% of your body's oxygen, that's massive. That means the brain is kind of like a 4th of July going on 24/7. And there's a lot of free radical damage. There's a lot of cellular damage and oxidation that takes place in the brain. And the brain is composed of a lot of fat. And so you want to make sure you preserve the brain tissue. So there's a couple things you need to do. One of the things you want to do is get this one magical fruit in your diet every single day, and that's blueberries. Do your very best to get, if you can get wild blueberries, they're going to be a little higher in antioxidants. And then make sure you get organic blueberries when you can. There was a report that just came out the other day with the Dirty Dozen, and blueberries were on there. So you want to be careful in terms of pesticides, because berries generally are very high in pesticides. But it's better to have conventional grown blueberries or strawberries or boysenberries than no blueberries at all. But if you can get the organic ones, they're far superior for you, more nutrients and less damage.
And you're okay with frozen blueberries, right? Organic.
Yeah, that's what these are. These are frozen, and these are wild, so they're very small, but they're higher in antioxidants. Freezing them is actually in many ways beneficial. But the blueberries, I've been promoting blueberries for over 25 years, especially in the geriatric community, and the research has been out forever. But for some reason, it's only been popular in the last, especially 5 years, which I was kind of shocked that this research wasn't out a long time ago, because I read it a long time ago and it just didn't get popular. But it enhances neuronal communication. It protects the brain from aging. It can help lower sugars really well. It's just a phenomenal fruit for you, and it's low in the glycemic index. So it's going to be one of the best things that you can get on a daily basis. All those antioxidants metaphorically kind of coat the brain, and they protect it from all the acid rain or the sparklers that are damaging your brain. And that's one of the reasons that you see people who eat higher amounts of polyphenols and these antioxidant components, especially something like a carotenoid like lutein, they're so protective of the brain. So I would recommend getting some sort of berries in, but particularly wild blueberries. If you can get spices in your diet, spices are really important. There was an article in Current Alzheimer's Research, a journal, and they talked about how cinnamon helped protect against beta amyloid plaque. And that's some of the plaque that develops in between the neurons and causes damage. There's also things called tau, and there's other destructive elements in the brain. But just spices alone are so powerful, and it doesn't matter what spice, they're all going to be powerful. But cinnamon really seems to help a lot too, and it helps with if you add it to smoothies or if you add it to your oatmeal. It also helps bring down sugar, controls sugar. So if you put some dried fruit in your oatmeal, or you had a lot of fruit in your smoothie, the blueberries and the cinnamon both help that. So between the blueberries and the cinnamon, that's one of the things that I would do. The other thing is I would get some flaxseed. And what I do, or what I recommend, is buy flaxseed at the store whole. Do not buy it ground. And then just put it in your blender and blend it. And then you grind it yourself, and then just store it in a glass container or some sort of container. And then put it in your freezer, or you can put it in your refrigerator. And then you can start out with small amounts of it, maybe a teaspoon at first, and you can work your way up to about a tablespoon. And it works best, I think, in oatmeal or cereal, and especially in smoothies, it works very good. And it's a way for our body to help. Our body creates these long chain fatty acids, particularly what's called DHA or EPA. And DHA is one of the most important fats for your brain. As a matter of fact, most of the fat in your brain is DHA. And it's important for your brain. It's so important that child formulas have to have it added. So if a mother isn't breastfeeding, they need to add that DHA into the formula, because children could be born with abnormal brain and retinal development. It's so important for that. So I would recommend, the blueberries, the spices, but particularly cinnamon, some flaxseed in your diet, and then just a traditional plant-based diet. Lots of legumes, beans, peas, and lentils for the B vitamins. There's certain B vitamins like choline that are really not that easy to get all the time on a plant-based diet, unless you're eating enough like soy or legumes or broccoli, some cabbage, things like that. And choline helps form acetylcholine, which is a neurotransmitter that's really important for the brain. So there are really important benefits of eating legumes in your diet. So try to find some legumes that you can eat. And if you can eat many of them, rotate them, because it's better for your microbiome and your gut health. So get that in. And then just get a wide variety of fruits, a wide variety of vegetables, of course. And then if you eat potatoes, I would go for sweet potatoes. So we see all those carotenoids in there, or purple potatoes. So we get we're looking for carotenoids and anthocyanins, these components in plants that help protect the brain. And then get a little bit of nuts and seeds in your diet. I'd say the seeds should be generally chia or flax, maybe a little Brazil nuts throughout the week, and walnuts. Now, if you can't deal with seeds or nuts very well, you can take a vegan DHA supplement. So one of the supplements, Complement, makes this one. And basically, it's a mixture of vitamin D and other nutrients in there, like B12.
Oh no. JP, are you there? You froze up on us. Hello, JP. Hold on, guys. We're trying to see where JP is. It kind of froze on us.
It's on his side because it's showing. Yeah.
It's on it, so it is on his side. Maybe we should let me text him really quick. Boy, just when we were getting into the nitty gritty,
maybe he can just rejoin.
Maybe he can rejoin, guys. I'm really sorry. So do we need to resend him a link or anything?
No. Okay, he just logged off, so he's gonna log on.
Okay, he's logging back on. Thanks you guys for hanging in there. I'm trying to reach him. Hasn't this talk been absolutely fantastic so far? I mean, it's just like so many things to process, and he's absolutely right. Because I live with my mom and I see it, and she's getting older, and I've really had to change her diet up a bit and get her more of the things that JP is talking about. And I know that she can't handle eating a lot of food like she used to before, or chewing the food because she's having some dental issues right now. So he's absolutely right. Getting the smoothies in, getting the beet boost in, getting the flax in. So far, everything's been fantastic that he's been talking about. And I hope you guys are really enjoying this talk, because it is very important that we have this discussion in keeping our brain super active and keeping it healthy, because we need to. So I think he's back. JP, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
Okay, now we can hear you. So back to the talk. I was trying to get everybody to keep going. Let me ask Aaron if we have any questions so far. Is there any questions for JP?
Can you tell us what you think about medicinal mushrooms?
Medicinal mushrooms. What a great topic.
Yeah. Well, there's so many different fungi out there that are so good for you, and it doesn't matter it's shiitake or reishi. It doesn't matter, but they're very protective for you. And I would recommend, kind of just like Dr. Furman has his G-bombs, and one of them, of course, is the mushrooms. There's been a lot of research going on for decades about how important they are for the immune system. And there's certain ones that have been attributed, like lion's mane, which is one of the funguses that's important for brain health. So yes, I definitely recommend cooking with them. And Health Force makes a powder. They make a bunch of powdered mushrooms that are really good, and you can use those in your smoothie or your soups. So if you don't have fresh ones, you can use the dried ones.
That's wonderful. You guys, if you hear a baby in the background, my cousin is here with her little one. So just try to ignore it, but the baby's really cute. And so if you hear a little baby in the background, yeah, my cousin's here with her little one. So that's what that noise level is. JP, you were talking about flax and how important flax seeds are for the brain. And maybe I need to know if what I'm doing is correct, because I don't put it in my oatmeal or my salad or my smoothie. I actually don't like it in my smoothie because it makes it too thick and it becomes gelatinous, and I'm not a fan of that. But what I do is I will take a tablespoon of ground flax and I just eat it, and I actually really like it. So,
well, yeah, that's fine. I mean, you have to be careful. Okay? Oh yeah, it's fine. It's just that sometimes it can get caught in people's throats. So I wouldn't recommend it to elderly people to do that, but if you do that and you like that, that's fine. But most people add it to oatmeal, cereal, or their smoothie.
Yeah, it's just I sometimes forget to add it to my food and I was adding it to my salads a lot. But then I started taking it like that, and I'm like, oh my God, I actually like it. Now, you're right. It does get in between your teeth, so you're going to have to go and floss really well at night. Because the little particles does get in, but so okay, so I'm not doing it wrong then.
No, there's no the wrong way to take it. The only thing is, for people who aren't used to it, flax is a very moving experience. So you want to start slow with it and work your way up. So like a teaspoon, if you're used to a fairly high fiber diet, and then you can work your way up to 3 teaspoons, which would be about a tablespoon. Okay,
well, back to the lecture we go that you were talking.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about like spices like cinnamon, which would be important, the flaxseed, which is important, the blueberries. One of the things that's important that I don't think is getting is we focus a lot. I'm having my retreat in Chicago for 4 days. We're going to be focusing a lot on the brain, but one of the things that we're going to focus on is actually exercises for the brain. And we could talk forever about diet, and everybody wants to know the mystical, magical nutrients for the brain. Look, just eat a whole food, plant-based diet, SOS free. So salt-free, oil-free, sugar-free. There's some research now coming out that some of the doctors that are, into brain research are talking about olive oil. And the thing you need to understand is, if somebody says olive oil is good for your brain, well, then it's kind of like if orange juice is good for your brain, wouldn't oranges be better because of more nutrients and more fiber? And it's the same thing with olive oil. If research shows that olive oil is beneficial, eating olives is always going to be more beneficial because of the fiber and the nutrients. So we just need to be careful about all this information coming about the brain, because look, if you wrote a book on diabetes and then the heart and then the brain, it's basically the same diet. So it's a whole food, plant-based diet, SOS free, salt-free, oil-free, sugar-free, okay? The rest of the stuff, yes, there's little tips and tricks here and there, but basically you want to spend most of your time working on getting as close as you can to 100% whole food, plant-based diet, salt, oil, sugar-free, okay? Then all the tricks you can add in. The exercise, as I said, is very important. One thing I'd say that we're missing, though, the most, and one of the things that we're going to talk at my retreat in Chicago about, and a lot of my clients that work with me one-on-one, this is what we do, is exercises for the brain. And when you're a child, I want you guys to understand this and try to really get this concept. When you're a child, I want you to think, Shayda, when you were 2 or 3 years of age, what was new to you at 2 or 3? Everything is new. Exactly. Right. Every single thing, every smell, every taste, every feel, every sight, everything is new.
So the brain is growing these dendrites so quickly. There's so many connections that actually there comes a time that your brain prunes them. It has to kind of do away with them. There's so many connections. But here's the big question for you, Shayda. At 40 years of age, what's new to you?
Very little things, not a lot.
Exactly. There's
Yeah.
not much new as you get older. When you start getting in out of your teens and into your 20s and 30s, you have the same group of friends. You read the same stuff. You listen to the same music. You watch the same shows. You go to the same driving routes. So your brain no longer is stimulated. And the one thing the brain thrives on is novelty. It wants different things. It wants unique things. Things that are unique and unusual. So one thing that, we're going to be doing a lot in Chicago at my retreat, and then I do with clients one-on-one, is we do a lot of exercises and movements that are unique and unusual to you. And one thing I'd recommend everyone do is just start using every day your opposite hand. So when you turn the remote control for your TV, use your remote control with your left or if whatever hand is not dominant. When you dial a number on your phone, or you're pushing buttons on your phone, use your opposite hand, because it's a fine motor coordination that you've lost, and it's stimulating to the brain. When I would be in retirement homes and senior centers, the first thing I had them do is I gave everybody paper and pencil when they came in, and they had to write their name 10 times with their opposite hand. And I'm telling you, some people could not even grab the pencil with their opposite hand, let alone write their name or print it. But week after week, month after month, they were signing their name pretty similar with their dominant hand as they were their non-dominant. It just took practice. So I'd encourage you to start using your non-dominant hand only when it's safe. Like, don't just drive with your one hand if you're not used to it. And don't grab a hot cup of coffee or something, or cut your food with a sharp knife. Do things that are smart, but you want to start stimulating your brain in little ways like that. The other thing you want to do is, before you go to bed at night, review your day with bullet points. Think about, okay, what did I do? I woke up this morning and I got dressed and I did all this. And then I went and got the newspaper and I saw the neighbor and I said hi. Kind of bullet point about 10 or 12 different things. And that helps you start learning to have a little bit better short-term memory. And one of the things that I used to do with the seniors is they used to love to watch, obviously TV. And back in the day, they loved the show called Everybody Loves Raymond. They loved that show.
I remember that show.
That was
funny show.
That was their favorite show. So what I used to encourage them to do is, when the commercial comes on, I would say hit mute on your TV and just tell me everything that occurred in that scene with Everybody Loves Raymond. So they had to recall what just happened in that scene. And that was training them all the time to use their short-term memory. So there's lots of little games and puzzles you can do, crossword puzzles, Sudoku, words with friends you can play on your phone or computer with your friends. There's a lot of things, but you want to be doing these things. The secret is it's really better for your brain to do things from morning till night than just an hour invested all at once. Now, an hour invested at once, if that's all you could do, fantastic, we'll take it. But I'd like to see if you could do things from the morning till night. One of the things that would be nice for you guys to try to do is write down the alphabet when you wake up in the morning. So just write it down the page, A, B, C, D, all the way to Z. And Shayda, let's try this right now. We have the alphabet. Well, you don't have to write it, but we're going to try it mentally. And I'm going to give you a topic. Let's pick fruits or vegetables. So as fast as you can, give me one fruit or vegetable for each letter.
Pomegranates and Swiss chard.
Yeah, but go in order. A, B, C.
Oh, apples, bananas, cranberries, dates. Yeah, dates.
Uh-huh. E.
What?
E.
Eggplant.
Eggplant? Is that a fruit?
Fruit or vegetable, yeah.
Oh, eggplant, yeah.
Endive lettuce would be good too. Elderberry.
Yeah. And then
Okay, let's keep going. F.
Fennel for F.
Good.
Grapes.
H.
Yeah, I'm thinking of H.
Type of melon.
Honeydew.
Honeydew.
Yeah, good. Okay, let's see if you can get I. I is a tough one.
There you go on iceberg lettuce.
Good for you. So these are things that you can do. I did these with the seniors all the time. And then when whatever they missed, they had homework. So that was their homework till I saw them 2 days later. They had to complete the list. So little games like that you want to do when you read the newspaper in the morning, or if you go on, I don't know what news station you go on, when you're reading it, go to a section of that paper that you don't really like or you're not used to. So if you don't like sports, read the sports. If you don't like cooking, read cooking. But you're trying to get some new vocabulary and new ways of looking at things. And our brain constantly needs it. It's very hungry for change and stimulation. And that's why it's so important to listen to different music, watch different shows, talk to different people, use your, like I said, your non-dominant hand. That's a really important one. Is there any questions there?
I have a few, but I'm going to wait to see if Aaron.
I know a lot of people probably are watching this on replay, but that's okay.
That's all right. Let's see what Aaron has. If Aaron doesn't have anything, then I've got a few.
Okay. So I'm one of those people that can do a lot with both hands. Writing is difficult but readable. So what about people that are, what is it?
Ambidextrous.
Yeah, ambidextrous.
Well, that's the thing. But like when you say reading, you can't write as well. You should be able to write equally with your left and your right. So you can just work on that. But, that's good. But, obviously most people have a dominant hand. So try to just use your non-dominant hand more, and then try to do tasks you're not used to. So just threading a needle, crocheting, playing just with they call them fidget toys. Getting a deck of cards and shuffling it, not the normal way, but the other way. Little things like that really stimulate the brain.
So someone wants to know, does JP still take on new clients?
I do. And one of the cool things is, it's so funny because, like I said, what did I say? It's been close to 40 years that I've been doing this. Well, I've been vegan 40, so I think it's 38 or 39 I've been teaching. But what's so funny is I still get people that will write me and say, can you refer me to anybody who teaches nutrition? They think I just do fitness, and fitness is one of the things that I do, but nutrition, of course, I've done, but my geriatrics is my background also. So a lot of times when people work with me one-on-one, I say, well, what would you like to work on? Do you want to work on emotional stuff? I've worked with abused women for 30 years. Do you want to work on nutrition? Do you want to work on fitness, or do you want to work on enhancing cognitive functioning? So I do cover a lot of different areas. I like I said, I've been doing this a lot. I have a lot of different wide variety of training and classes and certifications. So yes, I definitely still take clients, and you can just email me. It's foods. I'm sure Shayda can post it, or Aaron, but foods, FOODSFORLIFEJP@Yahoo. So it's foodsforlifejp@Yahoo.
Yeah, I've posted it into the show notes. So if you guys go into the show notes, it's in there, and I think Aaron's going to be posting it.
It's foods and force spelled out, right?
Yeah.
FOR.
Okay.
And I work a lot with clients who have Parkinson's. A good majority of my clients now are 80, 83. So I work with clients who have Parkinson's, Lewy body dementia. And I do a lot of brain building stuff we can do a half-hour thing via Zoom or FaceTime or on the phone, however you like. But yeah, I do that a lot. I also have an amazing 17-hour Zoom program. If you go to johnpierre.com and just click on the Pillars of Health coaching, that's an online 17-hour program. And that's amazing. I did that during the pandemic for people who were stuck at home, and I wanted to keep getting them information to keep them healthy.
And JP, is that the best way to contact you, at your email?
Yeah, email, the Foods for Life.
So question for you, for the elderly, let's say you've got someone who's in a wheelchair and we want to do exercises with them. What kind of exercises are good for the elderly that are wheelchair bound?
Well, it really depends what their limitations are. If they have the ability to get out of their wheelchair, that's important that they get in and out of that wheelchair dozens of times a day, because the one thing that we're seeing is we didn't really get into it, but there's something called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, this protein that gets released in the brain that's kind of like it's been known as miracle grow for the brain. It really helps the brain. And one of the things that really helps that, of course, is exercise. But big exercises like squatting is really important. And even better than squatting would be getting in and out of the wheelchair and raising your arms over your head. That's such a compound movement. It's so great for you. But generally, the people in wheelchairs don't have a lot of circulation in their hips area, and that hip area gets really tight. So a lot of times we try to get them on a bed and stretch them manually or do some stretches, but anything where you can just be throwing a ball, a beach ball, hitting back and forth, using some exercise bands. But anybody in a wheelchair is at a compromised position because that's what we call a common posture, laying down or sitting. And it's so important for your health and your brain to be in uncommon postures, which are standing and squatting, extension backwards. These are uncommon postures that are critical for life and mobility.
Yeah, because I know of some people that are like, they can't get out of their wheelchair. They're unfortunately.
Well, yeah, that's okay. I
wheelchair
mean, I've worked a lot with people that are in wheelchairs, but when I'm working with them personally in person, I get, we can use a slide board. It's called a transfer board, and we can get them to be on a bed. And then we actually have a lot of stretches and exercises. But if they are in a wheelchair, and I'm working with them via FaceTime or, whatever, Zoom, I want them moving their knees up and down. I want them raising their arms. If they're manually using a wheelchair, they need to open up really well like that, because they're going to get in that kyphosis, forward flexion posture, and they get really tight in here and their forearms get tight. So there's a lot of different stretches and things they need to do.
Is there one particular type of exercise that's really beneficial for the brain that, without, like, we should really do it every single day? Like, we shouldn't miss
Yeah.
it. Is there one that's in particular?
Well, that's a great question. If I can't give you one, but I could say getting that aerobic activity, getting the heart moving is critical. So even if somebody's in a wheelchair and they're moving their feet up and down and moving their arms, they're getting their heart pumping. But aside from the cardio, I'd say the most critical thing is what we talked about, the ping pong, the pickleball, things that they have to react to and stimulate their nervous system and use coordination. So whenever you can do any type of ball exercises or paddle exercises or juggling, even just get yourself 2 pieces of Kleenex and just throw one in the air, transfer the other to your hand and catch that one. Throw it, transfer, catch. That's so good for your brain. But
So
make
maybe
sure
like tossing this up in the air.
yeah, what is that though?
It's
The
just
gloves.
gloves. It's just kitchen.
Oh, yeah.
cooking gloves.
Yeah, but when you throw this one up, Shayda, with the right hand, transfer the left one to this one and then catch that one in the air. Yes. Great.
Ah,
Yeah.
So there we go,
And-
guys.
It works better if you use Kleenex because the Kleenex floats then. So yeah, that would be good. But
This is what I just had right next to me, so I thought, well, let's
Yeah.
try it.
that works good. Paper. What I used to use in the retirement homes is the seniors would save me all the fabric softeners. So I just collected hundreds of fabric softeners, and then they're reusable.
Yeah.
And
So
they
I used-
smell good.
Well, that's true too.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Why is it that you favor smoothies so much for the brain?
Oh, okay. Well, that's really easy. And I want to make this clear that I've been favoring smoothies for, at least 25 years, especially in the geriatric field. And there's a lot of people in our movement, Dr. Joe and Dr. Fred and Dr. Mary, that don't like smoothies. But I've had the most famous physician in the front row of my lectures when I started talking about smoothies. And, that physician was anti-smoothie. They came up to me after the lecture and said, JP, brilliant. You explained smoothies very well and the right way to do it. When I say smoothies, for most people, I'm talking about a green smoothie. I'm not talking about a fruit smoothie.
Right.
And like I said, some of the products that I use would be like the vitamin mineral green with like a non-dairy milk or coconut water, or I add in kale for them, or some sort of green, whatever it is, watercress, arugula, whatever it is, then put in the berries, then put in the flaxseed, then put in the cinnamon. And then if they want, they can add like a Health Force makes, I like this green, It's elite green. And so it's spirulina and chlorella. It's a green and a protein together. So they can add in some superfoods. And the reason I like it is because seniors, the people who need this nourishment so much, they have a very poor appetite. They're anorexic. They've lost their appetite. And so every sip they take is a plate full of food. And the same thing with kids. So one of the reasons I like smoothies is it's a very efficient way to get maximal nourishment for little work. I think it's great if somebody could eat a salad and beans and sweet potatoes. And if you got time to do that, beautiful. But I know with me, with running an animal sanctuary and doing all my volunteer work and seeing clients, I wish I had a little bit more time to eat like that. But a lot of times I rely on smoothies to get that nourishment in. And I think for geriatrics and children, it's life-saving.
I have to agree with you, because I think for the elderly, like you said, who can't chew, and they can't really get a big salad, like I could get a big salad in, or you could get a big salad in. I think that's a nice way for them to get it in, and they don't have to drink it fast. They can, and I think they should just drink it slowly and get the nutrients that are in there. And I think it's brilliant. I don't know why these other doctors are anti-smoothie. Maybe they're anti-smoothie. I mean, I don't know.
Well, one of the reasons is because they're thinking that everybody's just basically making a Slurpee, pouring in pounds of fruit and no greens, and they're consuming it too fast. But here's what I say, here's the thing to understand. There's a difference between having the science and then having practicality. If I work with a family in the inner city that's poor, and they're eating Captain Crunch with whole milk and a Pop-Tart and some Tang or fake orange juice, right? That's horrible for them. But if I could get the family to go to the dollar store and buy soy milk for $1 and frozen blueberries that they have there, right? And put that in the blender with, if they have some spices, if they have some other things, some greens or something, that every sip that child gets is going to be magnified so much more than a month's worth of eating that crap. So there's certain situations where smoothies are non-negotiable. You have to have them. And the elderly, in my experience, like I said, 25 years ago is when I started the geriatric work, over that actually. So I've learned, as time went on, I saw what worked and what didn't. I just don't follow the science. I can tell you, it's better to sit there and chew 70 chews, per mouthful. That's great. That's great science, but that's not practical for life. So the stuff that I suggest is a combination of science and practicality and experience that I've had in, 38, 39 years of doing this.
Okay. And then what role does supplements play in the brain health?
Well, I think most of the plant-based physicians would agree at least on one supplement, and that's B12. Right. That's so important for brain and neuron health. B12 and DHA help form that myelin sheath on your nerves. So it's so important for critical, neurological functioning. So that's non-negotiable, having B12. More and more for the physicians, Dr. Greger, Dr. Furman, Brenda Davis, people are considered some of the top researchers are recommending DHA supplements. The science shows us the DHA supplements. So yes, there are some people that follow a plant-based diet and they have their omega-3s tested and they look good. One of the reasons is because their omega-6s, and it's not a bad fat. I'm just saying for discussion, it's not bad, but the 6, let's call it the bad guy, is 20 times higher than the 3. And we really want them to be about 1-to-1 ratio. And the 6s are pro-inflammatory. They're generally from animal products and oils. And of course, heavy, if you eat a lot of nuts and seeds, you'll get more omega-6s unless it's flax or walnuts or chia. But not everybody is getting enough omega-3s. And we are, almost all of us, getting too much omega-6s. But a lot of these people that eat really perfectly, their omega-6s are super low and their omega-3s are really pretty good. So they have a really good balance. But that's not everybody. That's kind of the people, and I jokingly say this because they're my friends, but those are the fanatics. Those are the people who eat perfectly and do everything right. That's not most of us. So, I think B12, and maybe talk to your physician or your person you work with and see if they recommend DHA.
We've talked a lot about omega-3 and omega-6. There may be people watching that don't know what foods come from omega-3s and omega-6. Can you talk a little bit
Yeah.
about that?
Well, generally remember that like corn is a healthy food, but when you take, I'm just making a number up, 30 ears of corn and you get 1 tablespoon of corn oil, the omega-6 in there is so astronomically high, like safflower and sunflower. And every time you go to a restaurant, they don't use extra virgin olive oil, blessed by a monk. They're using the cheapest oils that they can get, cottonseed oil, safflower, sunflower, and these are notoriously high in omega-6s. Now think about, what do they feed cows? The cows eat predominantly grains and particularly corn. And corn, again, is pro-inflammatory. Not if you eat a cob of corn, no problem. But it's when you're feeding a cow about 15 pounds of grain and it produces 1 pound of meat, and somebody's eating that hamburger, that's a massive amount of omega-6s they're getting in their system. So generally think of omega-6s as animal foods, oils, which would be the vegans would eat, the oils, and processed foods. And then most nuts and seeds are going to be up in your omega-6s. The omega-3s are going to mainly be green leafy vegetables, the chia, the flax, the walnuts, but green leafy vegetables are going to be really great sources of omega-3s that really don't have any of the side effects as too much fat.
Okay, and then do you recommend Brazil nut for the brain health?
Yeah, well, Brazil nut's one of the best sources of selenium. And, selenium is really important as one of the best antioxidants selenium is a trace mineral found in the soil, and it's measured in micrograms. You don't need a lot of it. The problem is they don't tell you this, they'll tell you to eat 1 or 2 Brazil nuts a week. And that sounds like great advice, but the problem is that where were those Brazil nuts grown? They could have been grown in Bolivia. The soils are all different, even though they're called Brazil nuts. Not all the soils have the same selenium content. So it's not necessarily saying that every Brazil nut is just the same in terms of selenium. So yes, I think throwing in some Brazil nuts during the week and walnuts in terms of nuts would probably be your 2 best. In terms of seeds, the chia and the flaxseed would be your 2 best.
Okay, well, thank God, because I'm allergic to walnuts and I'm allergic to chia seeds, but thank God for the flax. So
yeah,
that's us. Okay, and Aaron, is there any questions before I ask the final question? Unless JP, there's more you want to talk about? Have you covered everything you wanted to cover?
Yeah, I cover a lot in my first book, The Pillars of Health, chapter there on the brain. The Zoom series has a lot. I bring in Dr. Lori Marbus on there, and she talks about the brain, and of course I do. That Zoom series covers a lot. It's 17 hours. So those 2 things are good sources. And then if you really just want to fine tune stuff, you can just do a session with me and I can give you specific exercises and homework that you can do on a regular basis. The one thing that I would say though is, being in this field for so long and working with all these seniors for so long, I've got to say, not being a physician and not seeing all sorts of disorders as a physician would, but I've got to say that dementia is one of the scariest diseases that I've ever seen in these poor individuals, because not only is it stealing their computer and their memories, but it really destroys families. And when you sit with a senior and her daughter walks in the room and she says, "Are you the doctor? I'm waiting for my daughter." It tears you apart, but it tears the families apart because they lost their loved one. They may physically be there, but they're not there mentally. And if they don't know who you are, it's very difficult to relate to them. So I would really, say to do your very best to do everything in your power to take care of yourself. There's no real cure for Alzheimer's or dementia. There's things that we can do to keep healthy and try to prevent these things, but you don't want to be falling for any scams when people say they've got some mystical, magical potion. It's just good, healthy living. And you want to do everything you can to prevent this from taking hold of you. And if it does, if you do have a loved one that has it, some form of dementia, you want to do everything you can to try to halt it or arrest it from going any further.
Yeah, good words.
I have 1 question.
Okay, we have a few questions left. Go ahead. No, I have one too.
Oh, yeah. So for brain health, is it the earlier you start doing these exercises with your brain, the better you are later on, or does that not matter?
like for instance, like I said, children don't necessarily need to do it because everything is new, but it's really kind of non-negotiable when you start getting into your 40s and 50s. I mean, of course, it doesn't hurt you. It can only help you to do lots of them as you're at any age. But once you get into I would just say in your 30s, you really need to be working very hard on, stimulating your brain, learning new languages, playing instruments, doing things like that. That's really important for you. When I'm working with my clients that are in their 80s, I mean, I had one lady come to me that, they were concerned about her cognitive functioning. And her memory, was going, and I got her to the point where she was memorizing 40 or more pairs of words, which was remarkable. I mean, 40 of them in a row that she had to memorize. So there, as long as you do the training and the exercises, you can improve. But children you don't need to be a fanatical parent and, have your child learning 10 different languages and all these instruments, and then they don't get to be a child, because that's very stressful. And we didn't even go into stress and cortisol and the hippocampus and things like that they're affected by it. But for an adult, yes, the sooner you start, the better.
Okay, well, you just touched a little bit on my question that I have, and how does stress affect our brain? Because a lot of us, including myself, are under a lot of stress, and I know a lot of the elderly are under a lot of stress. So how does stress?
Well, yeah, it's simple and it's complicated. One of the things that stress does, and I do a whole seminar at this in Chicago, is it affects your breathing, and it makes you more of a mouth breather, an upper chest breather, and a rapid breather. And when you do that, you're not increasing nitric oxide as you would with your nose. And you're removing, I know this sounds complicated, but you're moving too much carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide is not just a waste gas. It's important to release oxygen from your red blood cells. So stress impedes all that, and it impedes oxygenation to your brain. It also increases cortisol, and cortisol is very destructive, especially to an area of your brain called the hippocampus that's responsible for memory. When they do MRIs on the brain, they can see people, like especially soldiers in the war and people under high amounts of trauma, the hippocampus has really shrunk. And it's not the same as a normal functioning hippocampus or hippocampi. So stress is a big problem. And that's why things like breathing, meditation, and definitely exercise helps dissipate stress. And then, of course, like when I'm working with clients one-on-one, one of the most important things that I do is help them change their outlook on life. And that changes the way they're affected by stressors.
So I know meditation is really important for all of us, but I would think that it's even more important for the elderly. Now, I've heard a lot of people say, well, I don't know how to meditate. Where do I go to meditate? Like, isn't it basic?
I don't really think meditation is as important as mindfulness. The problem with meditation is, though it's great, it's not for everybody, because in some people, meditation causes more stress. So I have my clients start out with more mindfulness, where they're practicing focusing. I think you've heard me lecture before, Shayda, on laser beam focus.
Yes.
And the ability to focus is so important. And we're so distracted in our society today from social media and video games, pornography, ads on the computer and things. They just are blinking constantly, and they're making us train us so we have short attention spans and we don't have the ability to focus. And mindfulness is important. And maybe just as important as mindfulness is focusing on your breathing. I would say those two things are more important than meditation for now. I think meditation can come later, but I've never been a big fan of meditation for people who have high amounts of stress, because oftentimes it induces more stress.
So when you're talking mindfulness, and I've heard you speak before, and basically what you're talking about is when you're having dinner, turn everything off and just be mindful of what you're putting into your body. Be mindful of what you're doing. Is that correct?
Absolutely. You're going to eat, and I'm not saying you can do this because it's hard in society, but you're going to be more mindful, Shayda, if you ate alone than if you went to a vegan veg fest and ate with 20 people and everybody's laughing, which is great, and talking. There's no mindfulness, which is okay, as long as then when you brush your teeth, you're mindful, right? You got to have that mindfulness somewhere in the day or the evening where you're practicing laser beam focus. And I do a whole In Chicago at my retreat, I do a whole section on mindfulness because it's so important. But you're asking a great question. And although I love meditation, and I've been involved in meditation since the early 80s, and I've taught in India, so I'm a very big proponent of it. I just think there's a time and a place for it. And for many people in today's day and age, I like them to work on breathing and mindfulness first.
Okay, well, maybe our next class for the audience could be all about laser beam focus and all about mindfulness. And I think that would be a great topic for everyone, because I think it's really important. And you actually taught me that 10 years ago about having that laser beam focus from the get-go when I started my journey. And I think it's really important that we all do that. Do we have anything else, Aaron? No. JP, any final words?
Yes. The most important thing you can do for your brain that trumps nutrition, trumps exercise, trumps stress reduction is to be loving and kind. Just become a beacon of light and love. That alone will reduce your stress. That will make you healthier. That will reduce stress. That will increase good brain chemicals. That will open up the arteries. That will make the world a better place. So focus on, being a beacon of light and love, being kind to everyone, being happy, being helpful. All those things are really critical. The most important chapters in my first book, The Pillars of Health, are the last two chapters called they're what I call them the universal antidotes, which are love and compassion.
Well, beautifully said, JP, and it's always a pleasure having you on this show. You're just a beacon of light, and I couldn't be more grateful, and I'm sure our audience is really grateful for you to be here with us.
Well, thank you for having me, and thanks, Aaron, for your help too with Shayda. And thank you, Shayda, for having these shows on all the time and reaching the community. And then feel free to also follow me on livingwithharmony.org. That's my animal sanctuary site. And then johnpierre.com is my site. And I look forward to maybe working with some of you folks.
That's wonderful. And I can't thank Aaron enough for being here today. Thank you for watching another episode of Healthy Cooking with Shayda. And remember, guys, it's one bite at a time, one meal at a time. And we'll be back soon with another episode. Thank you again. Have a good night.
Bye.